Over the last couple of weeks, I've been doing a little reminiscing. You see, Suzanne and I, we are in a time of transition in our lives. And I was flipping through some of the old photos, and I stumbled across this photo of my family from about 18, 19 years ago. I stood amazed. I looked at myself. My hair was dark brown. I had hair. Now I've got a big hole in the back of my head. My hair is turning gray, and my wife, her hair is still brown. I don't understand that. I look at my daughters. My one daughter is a police officer. The other one is a nurse. It's amazing how much transition has taken place in life. Then I was thinking back when I was in school at seminary. You know, when I was in seminary, I did not have a computer. There was no access to the internet. I mean, think of today. We have so much knowledge, so much information right in our back pockets on our cell phones. We can access the internet and we can look up just about anything. I have a picture. Anybody remember what this is? That was a Brother word processor. I actually had one of those in graduate school. I could type my paper out, I could make all the corrections I needed, and then I could add the paper and hit print. It was miraculous. Saved me so much time. I mean, the internet, it's remarkable, isn't it? You know, but one of the things that just kind of amazes me, in all honesty, I find them kind of bizarre, are the viral social media trends that take place. You know what I'm talking about? Something goes viral, and all of a sudden there's tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of likes and views. You know, one of those viral trends was dog shaming. Have you ever seen a dog shaming post? They're your beloved pet. You take a picture of them, you write this sign underneath them, and you shame your dog for the world to see. Like this poor guy, 0 days since the last toilet paper massacre. I just gotta share with you, this is my new pup, huh? I think her name is gonna be Remy. But anyway, I would never shame her. But I mean, here's a couple others. I'm afraid of kittens. Or how about this one? You know, I like the taste of Samsung remote controls. The second one always tastes better than the first. I would never shame my dog, but if you really think about it, the truth is, so often we do it to people, don't we? Where we shame other people. See, we have this cultural fascination with the gotcha moment. You know what I'm talking about. We gotcha. And you've been caught, and we leverage those gotcha moments for entertainment. There are television shows like TMZ, America's Most Wanted, Cops, Dateline. They all thrive off of that gotcha moment. And then you look at social media, TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. I mean, we all want those gotcha moments so we can get more clicks, more likes, more views. Do you remember this from television just a couple of weeks ago? Scotty Scheffler. Now, I do not watch the PGA, so I'm not that familiar with him. But I learned about him on television. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, on the way to a PGA tournament, was directed by a police officer to turn in a particular way. He thought he was following the officer's directions, only to learn that the officer became irate, arrested him, and threw him in jail. Scotty was actually stretching in his cell, hoping to be released in time for his tee time. Okay, and the media, the social media, man, they were all over it. And people were even questioning his integrity. You see, Scotty Scheffler is a professed follower of Jesus. And people were questioning his sincerity. Was he truly a follower of Jesus or not? And then how about this one? Good old Justin Timberlake just got himself in trouble. Again, it was all over the news, all over social media. You know, I sit back and I think, that's not helpful. That's not helpful at all to anyone. And it's not what our world needs. You see, what our world needs is you. What our world needs is mature followers of Jesus, mature disciples who live out their faith, who experience the love of Christ, who live it and who share it. They live love. I mean, what the world needs now are mature followers of Jesus who strive to be Christ-like. I mean, could you picture it if you and I were more Christ-like in the way that we act and react? It would change everything, wouldn't it? Think of how it would transform our families, how it would positively impact our churches and our community, even our world, if we would only be more Christ-like. And so that begs the question, what does Christ-like look like? Well, Paul, the Apostle Paul, gives us an answer. He calls them the fruit of the Spirit. Now, I love that word fruit because fruit is produced in and through us as a result of our submission to God's Spirit within us. In other words, it's not something that we do. It's not something that we try to do because we all too tried and we've all too failed. But as we walk in step with the Spirit, as we walk with the Spirit, the same Spirit that transformed the disciples from hiding behind locked doors to boldly proclaiming their faith, the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is alive in you. Not a portion of the Spirit, but a full measure of God's Spirit is alive in you. And as we walk in the Spirit, as we follow God's leading, as we follow the Spirit, then fruit is produced in us and through us. And you know what the fruit is. It's found in Galatians chapter 5, beginning at the 22nd verse. Paul writes this: the fruit of the Spirit is love. Now, love is the catch-all. All the other fruits of the Spirit flow in and out of love, right? That Paul tells us that love is fulfillment of the law. All right, so love is ultimate, right? And so all the other characteristics of the fruits of the Spirit flow in and out of love. So Paul says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I love this last statement. Against such things, there is no law. In other words, Paul is saying you can max it out. You can live it to the fullest. You cannot have too much love. You cannot have too much patience or too much joy or too much kindness. Live it out to the full is what Paul is telling us. Now today, I just want to pause and look at gentleness. You know, over 31 years of being a pastor, I have never preached a sermon on gentleness. But what's amazing here is the fruits of the Spirit come at the very end of Galatians chapter 5. In just a few verses in Galatians chapter 6, Paul circles around. And of all the different characteristics or fruits of the Spirit that Paul could have chose, he chooses to focus on gentleness. See, in Galatians chapter 6, verse 1, he says, brothers and sisters. My friends, he's talking to us. He's talking to fellow disciples, fellow followers of Jesus. He says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, there it is, that gotcha moment, right? You've been caught. You've been exposed. It may have been hidden for years, but all of a sudden, it came out. You've been caught. It's that gotcha moment. If someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should. Okay, and then Paul goes on to tell us what we should do. You see, you have a role. As a follower of Jesus, you have a job to do. Now, those Pharisees, those legalistic types, those, keep the law tight types, man, I bet they were like going, oh, Paul, tell us what we should do to them. I mean, they were looking to slam the hammer down on them. But let me ask you this. Have you ever been there? Maybe you got caught, or maybe someone you love and care about was caught. They were experiencing that gotcha moment. They messed up, and someone knows. Someone caught them. And I've seen this over and over again in the last couple of decades. Then some church person inserts themselves into it. And you're thinking to yourself, why do they care? Because they're caring in the wrong way. And oftentimes, when someone inserts themselves into the gotcha moment, they cause more damage than they do good. See, I'll maintain it's easy for us to forget how we are called to treat people. And we all know someone, maybe even someone you love, who walked away from the church because they were mistreated, because someone exposed them, because someone inserted themselves into their issues. When we are in the midst of those gotcha moments, we all need help, right? And we wish that someone would have been there when it was manageable, when they could have controlled what was taking place so that we could have had a soft landing. See, Paul says this, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should what? Condemn that person harshly? Rebuke them publicly? Expose them for the world to see? No. Paul says you should restore that person. And here's our word, gently. You should restore that person gently. You see, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, those legalistic types, Man, they are after the thrill of the catch. They want to reel somebody in. They want to expose them to the world and delve out a harsh punishment. But as followers of Jesus, you and I are called to be in the restoration business. Now, I can't even believe I'm going to say this. But you know what? Maybe HGTV has got something for us. My wife likes to watch it all the time. But I was thinking about this. Just look at the shows that are on HGTV. Renovation Aloha, Restoration Rescue, Rehab Addict Detroit, Saving the Manor. They're all about restoring and restoration. Some 25 years ago, my wife and I bought a house in Treasure Island, Florida. When we bought this house, it was a pit. I've got pictures of the renovation, and I wish there were scratch and sniff, because, this place, seriously, had like 9 or 10 animals living in it, and I'm not even really sure if they were all domestic or not. When we first bought the house, I had a 10-yard dumpster that I brought. I had goggles on, I wore a mask, and I had real thick gloves, and the truth is, I still threw up. That's how disgusting this house was. We went to sign the contract to purchase it on a Sunday afternoon after church. My mom and dad were with us. My dad kept telling me, Paul, this house is too far gone. Paul, look at this place. Paul, don't do it. And his voice began to rise and rise and rise. He became angry with me. It's too far gone. Don't buy this house. It's a pit. And we turned around and we bought it. We bought it because I had some people who said and reassured me it's no big deal. Yeah, it took about 6 months to put it back together, but when we did, it was gorgeous. See, I'm talking about the difference between condemnation and restoration. Whether we're talking about a possession like a house or whether we're talking about a person. You see, condemnation is easy. It's easy for us to come up with a simple judgment and to point our finger at them. Condemnation is destructive. You're declaring something unworthy. You're declaring it to be worthless. But restoration sees what could be. Restoration sees beyond the current reality. And to go from something that should be condemned to something that is restored and beautiful, well, my friends, it's challenging. It takes commitment. It's constructive. Restoration, it's a messy process, and it takes time and energy and effort. But when you go to restore someone, you can see the potential. You see the value. You can see the worth, what could be. In those gotcha moments in life, it is so easy for us to condemn somebody and to move on. We live in a cancel culture kind of society where we just point our finger at somebody, we ostracize them, we condemn them, and we walk away. But as followers of Jesus, we're called to be a restoration people. That's what we would want for ourselves. Restoration is what Spirit-led people seek. So how do we do it? How do we live this out on a practical day-to-day kind of living? Stephen Covey in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People said, when you set a goal, you got to begin with the end in mind. You got to have a clear goal. You need to know what the finish line looks like. What is the target? So you got to have a clear goal in mind. I sit back and think, if you ever take motorcycle lessons, they tell you, like in this picture, if you look directly what's in front of you, you're going to run into the guardrail. You got to be looking ahead. You got to be following the curve. You got to know what the end goal is, and then you're safe. See, when it comes to those gotcha moments in life, my friends, you have a choice. You can point your finger and condemn, or you can choose to restore. And when you make that choice, it changes the way that you proceed. See, Paul says this in Galatians chapter 6. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, now, there's more than one way to be caught, isn't there? Just like there's more than one type of bill. If you have a bunch of bills with dead presidents on it, that's a good thing. But when you get a bill from Duke Energy, it's not that good. Well, see, there's different ways of being caught as well. Okay, you can be caught in a net, And when I hear that, I think of being entangled in a net. It implies danger, or you can be caught by a net, which implies a soft landing, safety. See, when we're struggling, when we're hurting, or when we're overwhelmed, we always move towards places of safety, places that are trustworthy, places where we're going to receive the help and the assistance that we need. Now, when you think of catching, both types of catching imply strength. Both types of catching imply power. See, I'll maintain in our world, we confuse gentleness with weakness. We think that if we're gentle, then we're displaying weakness. But gentleness, it requires strength. Gentleness requires trust. The Greek word, remember the New Testament is written in Greek. And the Greek word that Paul uses is prahutas. Okay, prahutas means gentle, mild, humble, and meek. It's this biblical meekness. It's not weakness, but it's exercising God's strength under his control. In other words, it's demonstrating power without undue harshness. I remember when my kids were little, I would get on the living room floor and we would wrestle. Both of them would attack me. You know, one would have their arms around my neck, the other one would be on my back, and we would just roughhouse on the floor. And I would take them off my back and I would throw them. Now, we're talking about my daughters here, right? So I wouldn't throw them and just smack them into the floor. No. I would take them off my back, I'd pretend to throw them, and then I would lay them gently on the floor. I would tickle and I would do the same thing to the other one. You see, when you are strong, you must also learn to be gentle. And the same thing is true no matter who it is that we approach. You see that gotcha moment? When someone's sin, when someone's struggle is exposed, that gotcha moment is a position of strength. So let me ask you, how will you leverage it? And there's so much more here because Paul goes on. You know, this is just one verse of the Bible. This is Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. Paul concludes this verse with this. He says, "But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted." Paul says, watch yourselves. Otherwise, you also can be sucked into the same sin. I remember when I was a teenager, I was swimming at this lake, and I was on the high dive, and I looked down into the muddy water, and I thought I saw something under there. So I kind of jumped to the side a little bit. I swam over and I went down. It was a young boy who was under the water, and the lifeguards did not see him. I reached down and I grabbed him. And this young boy was in such a panic that he just grabbed onto me and began to suck me down as well. I had to break loose and get up and call for help and call for the lifeguard who came and rescued him. See, Paul tells us, watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. Watch yourselves, or you can get sucked into that same temptation, that same sin. But I also want you to take a look at a broader picture here. Watch yourselves, because that could be you one day. That could be you who gets caught up in that gotcha moment. And how would you want to be caught? Do you want to be entangled, or do you want to be caught by? You know, what if it was you? Because the truth is, it was. It is, or one day it will be you. See, Jesus showed us gentleness in his strength. Remember, one morning, Jesus was at the Temple Mount. And it says that the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious elite, the leaders of the law, they found this woman caught in adultery. They caught her in the act of adultery. They grab her, they throw her down before Jesus, and they said, "Jesus, what should we do with her?" The law tells us that we should stone her. Remember Jesus' response? He said, "You who are without sin, you can cast the first stone." And one by one, from the oldest to the youngest, they dropped their stones. Jesus looked at the woman and said, "Is there no one here to condemn you?" And she said, "No one, sir." Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you." See, Jesus was full of grace and truth, not partial grace and partial truth. He was full on grace and full on truth. And this woman who got caught in that gotcha moment, he restored her. And then he said, "Go and sin no more." In all honesty, that's countercultural to our society, isn't it? Jesus restores, and he calls you and I as followers, as his disciples, to live lives of gentleness and restoration. My friends, are you navigating a mess right now? Maybe you're in the midst of that gotcha moment where you've been caught, or someone you love is navigating that mess. Be clear on what your goal is. If your goal is restoration, then the gossip and the condemnation and the judgment, they're all out. You throw them out the window. Let me ask you this. What do you hope to be known for? Condemnation or restoration? What do you hope the church is known for? What do you hope our church is known for? What if? Just what if our church was the safest place to land? See, Barna tells us that the church has a PR problem. That much of the world looks at us and thinks that we're condemning hypocrites. Condemnation or restoration? The temptation to use the truth like a hammer, oh, it's strong, isn't it? But Jesus said, when we were caught, Jesus said, I've got you. I've got you. And he didn't condemn, but he forgave and restored. You see, it was the safest place to stumble and fall. And so what does Christ-like gentleness look like? It's strong. It's safe, trustworthy, and restoring. It was in Matthew chapter 5 that Jesus said, in the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. As you treat somebody with that gentleness, someone will see your good deeds and will praise your Father in heaven. See, what the world needs now is you. Mature followers of Jesus who experience Christ's love. They live it and they share it. You have a great day. God bless and live love.